Now I'd like to turn to our regional perspective, and to provide that for us, I'm going to introduce Leo Wells and Doug Sams. Leo Wells is the founder, president, and sole director of Wells Real Estate Funds. He's a 30-year veteran of the real estate brokerage, sales, and management industries. And Mr. Wells is recognized as an industry expert on real estate investment trust and is a sought-after speaker. He's the national winner of the 2003 Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in the financial services category. He was also honored in 2008 with the Distinguished Alumni Award from the University of Georgia Terry College of Business. Mr. Wells was elected to the Board of Governors for the National Association of Real Estate Investment Trust. And in 2009, the Southeastern chapter of the Real Estate Investment Advisory Council inducted Mr. Wells into the Hall of Distinction of Georgia State University. Doug Sams is a reporter with the Atlanta Business Chronicle. He's been with the Atlanta Business Chronicle since October 2006. He covered healthcare in 2006 and in 2007, including the financial crisis that threatened Grady Memorial Hospital and the eventual reorganization of the board of directors. Doug took over the commercial real estate beat in late 2007. He was formerly with the Gwinnett Daily Post from 2001 until 2006, where he wrote and helped edit the paper's first business section. He's a Georgia native, grew up in Gwinnett, went to the University of Georgia, graduated with a BA in English and History. Please welcome Leo Wells and Doug Sams.
I'm glad they didn't get a tech guy down and get me.
How you doing?
He asked too many hard questions.
Well, I think the biggest question on everybody's mind right now is probably, when is the office market in Atlanta going to start to recover? It's been a pretty difficult year in 2010. Better than '09, but still bad. When do we start to see a sustained recovery in the Atlanta market?
Well, I've been around Atlanta a while, and I'd say never. Because time we get whatever's there leased up, we'll overbuild it again. I think the secret of, I don't think y'all really care about when it's going to recover. What you're interested in, how you make money at it. Is that a fair statement? Unless you're on a government payroll or something. So I think what you really do is you learn to catch it at the moments you can make some money. And historically, if you think about it, I don't know how many of you have lived around here 25 years, let's say. Well, all you got to do is go back a few years. Gosh, that's not very many of you. Where are y'all from? Up north somewhere? Anyway, we've just seen this repeat itself over and over and over and over. And when the people have made the most money, is they caught it with cash, and that's what the chart showed a while ago. They caught the down market with cash in their pocket, and you ride the up market. I mean, this is not a complicated business. In fact, Doug, you and I have talked before. I don't even really think we've got a real estate problem. What we have is a debt problem. If you think about it, if everybody in Atlanta and everybody in America, let's say, had paid for everything, their house, their office buildings, would we have a real estate problem? I think they want true or false question. Would we have a real estate problem? No. That's right. No leverage, no problem. That's a good way of putting it. And so I really think what we ought to be focusing on a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the times, and we'll switch back off this, but I think an important thing in life to make money is get the first thing first. And debt is the first thing first. And when you have a lot of debt, and our tendency in this business has always been to over leverage. I've got a theory that leverage is like cocaine. Everybody's going to start off as a social user. And debt's that way. And pretty soon they've snorted their whole life up their nose. And I just think that's what tends to happen. I could name you big companies. I'm older than a lot of you, but name you big companies from going back to the I guess, the 50s, when there were companies out of New York, the biggest in the world. Debt killed them all. And debt is what I see as the biggest enemy of making money.
Well, when we talk about debt, some of the biggest, smartest, most sophisticated developers in Atlanta and elsewhere got caught by that. Cousins Properties, a legend in Atlanta, would talk about, how, it got over-leveraged a bit. Tishman Speyer over-leveraged a bit. Is there a part of you that ever says, reluctantly, I told you so? Because debt's not been your game.
No, but I do think probably we ought to change the definition. Here's how you define those people. The smartest, most sophisticated, well-educated. Now, some went to Georgia. But I think we define sometimes people who can borrow 120% of a project as smart. And I think we've got the definition wrong, because you tend to aspire to what other people say is a smart way to do things. So a lot of you are young, and we'll see this roll over again, by the way. You'll get to live through this 2 or 3 more times if you haven't learned anything in this time. And so I just think we ought to change some of our definitions as what is smart? Is it smart to go out there and just snort your life up your nose? That's the way I look at it. And it's not. The Bible has an interesting phrase where it says, if you owe a person money, you're their slave. Something about slavery doesn't mean smart to me. And I think they had all those pictures of credit cards up here. I just think that's just the wrong way to look at it. And I do believe in far more austerity. I can't even pronounce it. I crammed 4 years into 5 at Georgia, so I didn't. But austerity we look at that as a bad thing. And I just don't, when you are being austere, you're paying off your debts and putting money in the bank, and the banks can use that money to grow things and do things. And I like that philosophy.
Well, before we get to the where the market's going, let's go back. You've been doing this 30-plus years, and you've seen a few downturns. Mm-hmm. And as you said, this is a debt problem this time rather than a supply problem.
Right.
What experiences shaped your attitude towards debt in real estate?
Well, I've been broke. That'll help you. When you're broke and owe people money, and they calling you up every day saying, you better pay us or we're going to come take your, I was going to say take my children. That might have been not a bad, no. They're going to take your car. I've had them come by and want to take my car, and I talk them out of it till I could get up some payment. So a lot of you have never been broke. How many of you have been absolutely broke? See, only a few people. The rest of you, y'all living off your mom and daddy still? But when you're absolutely broke, in fact, I remember a year one time that the people at church were giving me $40 and $50, just people, just give me the money. We went and bought groceries with it. All of a sudden, you learn that debt, and I had a lot of debt. I didn't want any more of it, and one time's enough for me.
Well, maybe that experience, which changed your attitude towards debt, would do the same for the developers and owners in this cycle. Maybe coming out of this, there may be a less of a tendency to.
Depends on how hard it pops them.
Right.
You can have debt and not learn. I've seen people that ran it up, and then somebody forgave all their debt, and they didn't pay it back, and they started all over again. I was dealing with really mean people. They sent these people to my house, with funny last names. And that tends to change your theory. Plus, my granddaddy. I grew up in Valdosta, which is, for those of you Yankees here, that's way down in South Georgia. And my grandfather's theory was, if you don't have the cash for it, you don't need it. And I really learned that in my 20s in the real estate business, and I've gone the other way. And my granddaddy has gotten smarter and smarter the older I've gotten. So,
well, that debt did lead to a lot of problems for a lot of owners, and they've got distressed real estate on their hands. And Some of it has gone back to the banks, and the banks are trying to unload it. But those funds that were put together for this distressed real estate really haven't had those opportunities yet so far in 2010, even though they expected to. Do you think, well, first of all, why did that happen? Why weren't those opportunities, why didn't they unfold? And are those opportunities going to be more prevalent in 2011?
If y'all understand the question, how many of you were around? I hate to ask y'all all these questions. I want to see how intelligent you are. Now, how many of you were around in the RTC days? Okay, so you remember that? Here's the example I guess we have. In the RTC days, there was mark-to-market. Y'all remember the mark-to-market situation? Savings and loans particularly, they had to mark-to-market everything. And then it was worth about 10 cents on the dollar. And then they were also forced to sell all those things. The bank regulators came in. Y'all remember all those? Now, you could really get some deals then. Now it all came down the pipe at a real fast pace. This time, as also was talked about earlier, we've not seen that. They did away or ignored mark-to-market. That was the first sign that this was not going to happen quite as fast as we thought. We generally buy about $1 billion a year, $800 million. Heather's one of our buyers, our people are here. Heather, about $750 to $1 billion. We've had years of $2 billion, but so we buy that much. We just in 2009, I said, let's hold all our cash. Let's build up a lot of dry powder, and 2010, that pig will come through the python, and we'll be ready. And all of a sudden, mark-to-market was the first sign that maybe it wasn't going to do that. Then the second thing is, the concept of a rolling loan gathers no loss came up, and kicking the can down the road. Well, that just, I tell you, it's caught me off guard. I never had seen anything like it. By the way, nobody else has either. And so now I think this just is going on down the road. I think as banks start to make money, gosh, they ought to make money now. If you're a banker, you borrowed nothing, and you can buy treasuries at 2.6, I think, today. I mean, that's a high profit margin. It's infinitesimal. So as they start to make money and have earnings on their balance sheet, I do think, and again, this was talked about a little earlier, I do think what you'll see is them taking losses on properties they foreclose. They will start to foreclose, taking losses, offsetting with the gains that they have, not pay any taxes. And but I think that'll be strung out over 4 or 5 years instead of all. I was expecting it in 2010. Any of you ever been to Africa, particularly around Tanzania and Kenya? You know how every year you get these migrating, particularly wildebeest and zebra. Y'all don't even know where Africa is. You watch National Geographic? Well, here, this will just help you. I like visuals. Every year there is a migration. In some years, literally, they all run through in maybe a week to 2 weeks, and it's gone. But another year, it might take over a month. They just sort of gradually go through. Now, the concept here is, if you're a lion, you know a lion? A lion. Which do you prefer? Right. I want them to take your time coming by. I want to eat for a long period of time. If you got a lot of money in cash, this one's going to be really good, because I think it'll come through over a 4 or 5 year period of time is the way it looks right now. And you're going to eat good if you got cash in what's going to happen over the next few years. Does that analogy help you? You know, some of you say, "Wow, you know, kill these banks, kill all." Really, look at it as suicide. You're not killing the developers; they just committed suicide, and you're taking advantage of their dead body. I don't know.